Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Here we are. Another day. Another stroke of the cat. Look how cute he is. I uploaded a picture yesterday on my Instagram, me and Edgar.
You did.
It's got nearly 10,000 likes.
That's because of him. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, completely. He's like selfie games really strong.
Yeah.
Any announcements?
Don't think so.
Come on, Edgar. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my god.
This is new. Okay, so this email is from someone called Olivia, and she said she's super curious to know how the rehearsals process for a cast change differs to that of an original production or a tour cast.
Right.
And she said, I assume that the entire cast doesn't always change in a cast change.
Yeah.
So how do you rehearse big group numbers involving cast members who are not changing? That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be interesting to say how the rehearsal process from a new musical to a pre-existing musical differ.
Yeah.
Because they differ a lot, I think.
Yeah. Well, a new musical, it's pretty straightforward because the whole cast is new. So everyone's in rehearsals together and you all rehearse as one big cast, and you'll get your schedule, and on Sundays there'll be scenes where it's just like 2 people, and then the next day it'll be like a big ensemble number, so everyone will be in. So a director knows they've got the whole cast at their disposal. But with a cast change, like my hardest one was Chitty, because the only 2 cast members changing were me and Lee Mead.
Oh yeah.
So Jason Manford and Amy Griffiths were coming out as Trudy and Caractacus, and me and Lee were going in. So that meant we were the only 2 rehearsing in a rehearsal room with the associate director and the associate choreographer.
Yeah.
So they had to be like everyone. So if we were doing a scene that was like a big group, like Toot Sweets for instance, Joe Goodwin, who was our associate choreographer, had to like fill in all of the people who would be in our traffic, who we'd have traffic with. So she'd be like Bugs Bunny, like darting around the rehearsal room, like, and this person will be here, and then this person will give you this, and this person will take that prop, and like darting around us. And then what we did closer to the time, so we had like, I think we had maybe 4 weeks rehearsal, just us. And then in the 5th week, we went to Stoke, where the Chitty cast was currently performing with Jason Manford and Amy Griffiths. And so we would go in just after their warm-up, and we'd rehearse like one big number at a time. So we'd go in, and after warm-up, they'd be like, okay, we're just gonna quickly go through Toot Sweets, and we'd have like 15, 20 minutes to run Toot Sweets a couple of times with the cast and just iron out any creases.
Yeah. That's always scary, isn't it? Because it's one thing knowing, doing it with one person and going, this is the traffic, someone's gonna walk in front of you at this point. But when you actually do it with everyone, it can be a bit like, I know what I should be doing, but it can be a bit scary because you're like, you're not Joe Goodwin, you know what I mean? Like,
and people just do things in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And, you know, if, I don't know, and people get into routine, so things like slowly change over time.
Yeah.
So if maybe something was like really rigid and strict in rehearsals when they were doing it, it's now loosened up and they've got like banter with the people who you're now filling the place of.
Yeah. I'll sort of go into like what it's like doing a new musical, only because it's quite fresh in my mind with Back to the Future. And the big difference of doing a new musical and an old musical, you know, like one that's already been done, is that the creating in the room.
Yeah.
Everything changes and you've got to be ready for change.
Yeah.
You might go in one day and you've done the opening number, and then they might come and go, right, this is now the opening number, like...
Forget what you learnt yesterday.
First 2 is cut and the choreography, we're not doing that anymore. That's what happens, and you really get to see a director and a choreographer like work for their money, because they have to like you're creating a show. So it's like much more. It's like you're creating a machine, whereas a cast change and you're just jumping in to a existing show. You're just a cog in a well-oiled machine. Yeah. And they're just going plop and putting you in. Yeah. Like Mormon, for example, it was all like numbered at the front. So you stand on 10, and you walk to 0, and then you get up that prop and you go off stage right. Whereas like Back to the Future, it was completely new. Like, and it was all like ever changing, and it was changing in previews as well. So it's like it's a bit more stressful.
That's the scariest thing when it changes in previews. Because at least when you're in the rehearsal room, you know that if you're given a change and you forget it or it goes slightly not according to plan in a rehearsal room, you know that it's like it's safe and you have the room to screw up and it not be too much of a big deal. Yeah. But then when you're given changes in previews, like I remember with Heathers, our whole ending to Heather's completely changed. Yeah. I can't even remember what the original ending was, but it was a case of being given like a whole wodge of script.
Yeah.
With like all new music, all new lines. Like, I remember it being so drastically different. And it was a case of being handed that during the day at like 10 o'clock, and they're like, yeah, we're putting this in tonight. Yeah. And I just remember being like, I am not going to remember this, because we've already performed and kind of solidified in your head what the old version was. And it sounds like, you know, having a full day, you know, maybe like 10 to 5, having a full day to rehearse that sounds like enough.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into performance mode, you're like, oh my God. And especially because it was the end of the show as well. So I'd have the whole of the show just to like settle back into routine. And then suddenly in the boiler room being like, oh my God, I've got different lines. What are they? What are they? What are they?
It's like, it's hard to unlearn stuff.
Yeah.
If it was a completely new scene, you might be like, oh yeah, I can sort of do this. It happened to, like, not as bad as that, but like in the end of Back to the Future, we do Back in Time as like finale. Yeah, mate. Yeah, fair. Yeah, I got to do Back in Time in the finale, and they just added this choreography because we weren't really doing anything. We were just like step clapping and just like because we ran out of time. So they were like, we'll add Back in Time, and then we'll add choreography to it. And then one day they were like, right, this is choreography, and it's going in tonight. And it was just that sort of choreography, which is like, doesn't look hard, but it's pretty hard. Yeah. And it just like rhythmically, it was just, and we were singing as well.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God. And I remember, because we like, the ensemble were the only people who were doing it. And we were behind a curtain, and it goes bow, 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 whatever. And before that curtain came out, we're all like hugging each other, going, good luck everyone. No joke, we're like, good luck everyone, we're in this together.
Oh, God.
And I was on the back row, so it was fine for me, because I could see everyone and copy. Yeah. But the people at the front, bless them, they were going, everyone was going wrong. It was one of those things that we all just like messed up. He walked out. Yeah, it was all going wrong. But I was at the back, just like seeing this car crash of choreography. But then the next day it was fine, but it was just that, it was just like, we're doing this tonight. And it's quite a lot of choreography. So I was just glad I was at the back, so I could copy people.
We had another scene in Heather's as well that was thrown in just before Lifeboat.
Yeah.
And it was like, the bit that was added was me having to interrupt Becky Locke and Sophie Isaacs having their sort of like argument.
Yeah.
Because we all shared a dressing room, we were like going over it and going over it and going over it and going over it in our room, like in the interval. But it was up to me to like interrupt their argument. That was like the new bit. And so they were like, please don't leave us hanging, please remember to come in. And I could feel like them like starting to panic as it was leading up to that bit that I'd forgotten. Obviously I hadn't, and it was fine. But it is that horrible feeling when it's like your fate is in somebody else's hands, because the change is down to somebody else. And if they forget, that's like the scene just slowly like crumbles and falls apart. Out the sink. Out of the sink. Edgar.
He does what he wants.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I was thinking, because I obviously did a cast change for Mormon, and the second year was really cool for me because I was first cover price, and obviously they weren't going to have the price in, like, to do rehearsals. Yeah. So when they were doing like the cast change, so the like year 2 for me, I'd go in and be priced. So it was really good like practice for me, because prior to that I only did one show.
Yeah.
And that was like 6 months before. So I got to like really do it, and I remember like the mates going, like, obviously they're mates now, but they weren't at the time, because like, I just met them. And they said they were like blown away, which was really nice. Because they were like, oh my God, this guy's sick. Like, and I was like, oh thanks. So did you ever do a dress run then? Because I know that in Mormon what they do, this is like how it sort of works. They rehearse obviously the cast as much as they can, and then like the last week they'll bring the cast into the theatre, and then in the theatre it'll be like the next year cast, you know what I mean? So if you're not staying on, you won't be called.
Yeah.
And then they'll do, I guess, a tech or something, go through all the technical stuff, and then do a run with the cast. But if I recall, I don't think, if you're like staying and you already know the show, for example, you don't have to be in costume.
You're not in dress, no.
No, so you're just there with your mic on, and you do the choreography and the blocking and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just for that person.
Yeah. So for Chitty, we had a dress run and it was just me and Lee Mead in costume. But we had a dress run. It was in Southend, because I remember staying in Southend and doing my dress run at the Cliffs Pavilion. And we did a dress run the day before the whole cast went on holiday for a week. So then my opening night was a week after I'd done my dress run.
That's so weird.
So we did a dress run, had a week off, and then it was my opening night. And it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
In a completely different venue as well. In Milton Keynes. So I did my dress run in Southend, had a week off, and then did my opening night in Milton Keynes.
Why did they do
that? I don't know.
That's so weird.
I don't know. But it was stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Stressful.
Yeah.
I remember doing the cast change for Dubai as well, because the rest of the cast had done other venues together. They'd done Singapore, Manila, and somewhere else where I always forget. I can't remember where it was. And then there were 6 of us, I think it was 6 new cast members slotting in for Dubai. So we had 2 weeks rehearsals. And we'd already done Les Mis, but it was a completely different version. It was like the version, kind of the version that we're doing now at the Sondheim, or would be doing now at the Sondheim. It wasn't the version with the Revolt. So it was like learning a totally new version of a show that you already knew or thought you knew really well.
Yeah.
But it's so much more like violent and sexual, the new version. Yeah. I remember being put into Lovely Ladies, because at this point I was still Eponine, so I would have just been one of the whores. And I remember like watching everyone do their thing and being like, oh my god, this is so sexual compared to what we do, or what we did at the Queen's, where it was sort of like, you know, in the dark, like no one can see you at the back, so you're not really doing anything. But this was all like front of the stage, in spotlights. She's pretending to give him a blowjob, like she's being taken from behind in the corner. I was like, oh my god, this is so sexual compared to what I'm used to. And like doing the Eponine scenes as well. And like, so you'll stand there and then he's gonna hit you over the face with a crowbar. And I'd be like, what? That's never happened before, okay.
Yeah.
Like everything being like heightened to the max.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So it's really weird doing like a completely different version of the same show.
Yeah.
And also doing Les Mis as well, like rehearsing for the Sondheim version of Les Mis during the day and then doing the concert in the evening.
Yeah.
And having like 2 different versions of the same show in your head. I've got about 8 different versions of Les Mis in my head.
You've done so many versions of Les Mis.
So I did the original Queen's version.
School.
Yeah.
School edition.
Well, I've got my little Eponine track in my brain, which is about 10 seconds long.
Yeah.
I did the Schools version, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
The normal Eponine track in my brain. The Dubai Eponine track in my brain. The concert version and the Sondheim version. So I've got 6 versions of Les Mis somewhere in filing cabinets in my head.
So crazy. We've spoke about this before, and I think you said your example was in Heathers, but talking about like long running shows and like being lucky enough to like originate roles and like creating stuff. What are the things that like will live on? Like from the stuff you've done. Like I think for us, like for example, Wednesday and Lucas in the UK version of Addams Family, we were the originals.
Yeah.
So the tour that was going to go out, I don't know if it's going to go out anymore, but they will be doing our blocking.
Yeah.
So that's like something that we've like left behind. Like I think stuff in Back to the Future, for example, like it's meant to come to the West End. Say I didn't do it for whatever reason. Whoever did my track will be doing all the stuff I sort of created. Yeah. And forevermore as well. So when it probably does go to Broadway in years to come, like someone will be doing my track. Yeah. You have a couple, don't you, from like Heathers?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that were like, we were just given sort of free rein ad-lib wise, but then Kevin Murphy, who wrote the script, liked our ad-libs so much that he was like, they have to stay. Yeah. And then when they printed the script that they then sold front of house, our lines are in it, and I was like, that's really cool, that's so cool. Yeah. And I Say No, I think, is my biggest thing. Yeah. Like, the I Say No was written for my version of Veronica, so I was the first Veronica to ever sing that song and to, you know, make that a reality on stage. So to then have that sort of like live on is like really cool.
That is really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm excited about Cinderella as well.
Yeah, that's another one.
Because Cinderella is going to be the biggest thing for me, because all the other parts that I've played as an adult, I've been like the UK original, but I've never been like the original. Yeah. So with like Addams Family and Heathers, there were things that, especially with Heathers actually, because it was the same director. With Addams Family, we had a completely different creative team, but with Heathers, it was exactly the same creative team as the American version.
Yeah.
So they had moments where they were like, we know this works. We know if you say this line like that, or you do this move on that line, you're gonna get a laugh. And that's this is tried and tested. There's kind of no arguing about it. So it was kind of like, yes, you're the UK original, but how original is it when you're not making these discoveries for yourself? And you're not making these choices. They are somebody else's choices that you were then building into your own performance, which is like, fine, that's the job. You take your direction, and if something works, why would you change it? Yeah. Why would you change it to something that doesn't get a laugh, you know what I mean? Yeah. But with Cinderella, it's going to be really fun to like make those discoveries yourself. And we've already kind of had a taste of that, because we've done 2 workshops and then a read-through, like we did 1 read-through before lockdown. And there were things from the first workshop that I found different ways of saying them. Because you know when you know something's funny, but you just haven't found the way to say it to get the most impact. Yeah. And there are a couple things, like by the time we read it through for the 3rd time across like a year, I'd found it and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because I remember the first time saying that, like 2 people laughing, and now like the whole room's laughing. And I'm like, brilliant, that's really cool. Like being able to find those moments on your own and feeling like that accomplishment. Yeah.
So to like round up then, would you say, I think I know the answer, but would you say that you prefer like knowing, like slotting into a well-oiled machine, a musical, and like you just stand there and sing your song and you go off stage right, whatever, or do you prefer the more stressful originating, like a show, that sort of rehearsal process?
I honestly don't mind. I find challenges in both. Like obviously I think if I had the choice, I'd much rather start from scratch. Yeah. But there is something really fun about being given something that's already fully formed and finding your own take on it. Yeah. Like I really enjoy, I think that I enjoy having those less stressful moments where someone gives you something that's already put together, but then it's almost like you get to decorate it. Yeah. You get to put your own, you get to make it look like it's yours. Yeah.
Well, that's that really. Rehearsals, cash change, slotting in, slotting out. Take it all about. Right everyone, bye, have a good day, be safe out there. Don't be an arse. In case I didn't get in, I said don't be an arsehole.
It's true.
Bye everyone!